and welcome back to my channel. For those that have never been here, hi, I'm Tori and I love sewing. Today I am debuting the new bag pattern by Tryxus Designs. It is called Andromeda, sorry, not ta-da. And it is this very, very cute double zipper pouch. So it's just one section so you can get your hand all the way through. I've already thought of several uses to use for it. It's got a slip pocket on the outside. It's got two slip pockets on the inside. I'm pretty sure my child's going to claim this for his art supplies, but I could also see it as a men's shaving kit, a makeup kit, a craft storage thing. So if you had this would be really great to store all of the extra bits that I need for my scan and cut, for example. Anyway. It's pretty cool. It's pretty quick to make. This video is not very long. The hardest part I had trouble with was turning it through because of the thickness of my vinyl. So you can always just change the opening hole from where I did it to where the pattern actually says to do it. All right then, guys. So I've got everything in my box. Now, I didn't have to use any interfacing for this particular bag because of the fabric choices I made. So I'm using my waterproof lining for the lining, or waterproof canvas for the lining. I just call it waterproof lining. And then for the outside, I'm using this fun textured vinyl, and that's my child singing. Can't help that one. He's obsessed with We Will Rock You from the movie Pixels. Anyway, so because this is quite a thick vinyl, I don't want to put any more interfacing on it because I think it will be too thick for this project. So I've clipped all of the pieces because they don't have any measurements. I can actually show you those. And so I've got the instructions slightly off screen so we can just begin. So the first thing we're going to do is take our strap and I'm going to use double-sided tape. Now, you don't have to use double-sided tape. You can just as easily clip it all together, but I like double-sided tape. Pop this. Don't put this too far away because we've got to mark all of the measurements onto it. So I'm going to fold both sides into the center like this. Oh, I actually think I've cut this way too small. So you're actually meant to cut it twice this length and then double fold it. But if I stitch in the center instead of on the edge, I can still get away with this being the handle and being the right thickness without having to cut another piece. So I'm going to put my stitch length up to 3 3/4, and I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch each side of the center. As you can see, I did get a new foot. So this is an all Teflon foot, according to where I bought it from. So I got this one off eBay, and there's a guy in Melbourne. So I'm stitching down the other side, and then I'm going to stitch, all the way to the edge, and then I can do the edge stitches like the pattern says as well. And those center stitches mean that that won't come open, so it's like an extra decorative bit. And I've used half as much vinyl because this is quite thick. And then to keep it all even, I'm going to sew to the center so that my end lines match up, and then trim off those tails. So I've essentially got the same strap just with half the amount of vinyl because this is thick and textured. If I was using like my marine vinyl, I could have done it the other way. So now I'm also going to take a friction pen, and I'm going to use red so that I can see it. And then I just need to mark on here the stitch lines. Stitch line, stitch line, stitch line. So I'm just marking it, and then I can grab a ruler and go all the way across. This is actually my size number 7 zipper pocket template from the Zipper Swatch. I have separated it from the others because it is my most used one, because all of my pockets, I do Tory pockets, which are 8 by 12 inches. I think that's a good size. So I always need the 7-inch zipper pocket thing. So it gets to sit out of the drawer. So I've marked all of those markings, which you can't really see because it's in like a friction pen. So where the red is. And I did it in red just that I could see it against the silver. So now it says to grab our other gusset piece. So the big wide one, which is the back gusset. And then we're going to put our handle in the center. Now, if you can't find the center by looking, you can just fold this over, pinch and clip. And if you do that again to the other side, that is exactly center point of this, like so. And then we can grab it and clip it on. So I'm going to use some Wonder clips. Clip it there. And then clip it right in the center on this end as well. Like that. And so then we're just going to stitch all of those pieces. So there should be a little bit of a rise in it if you match up the ends. And so I'm going to start with this one here. And I'm just going to stitch forward 2, back 2, across, and then back stitch a little bit on that end as well. And that's my first mark. I'm also going to base it to the edge in a second. So we can come and remove these now because it won't shift. And stitch across the edge and base in place. Like that. And then I'm going to come and do the opposite end. So you can do the basing on the edge first if you don't like the clips in your way. That's entirely up to you. Trim off those tails as you go. Oh, all my magnets are missing because my child has decided to put them on this side. So they are still on my machine. They're just on the wrong end. He likes to decorate it, and who am I to tell him no? Okay, so now that those ones are flat, we're going to take this and have like an even amount of rising on each of them, if that makes sense. So you don't want like completely flatten it all there. You kind of want to spread it out evenly, and then we're going to stitch the other 2 parts. We're going to back stitch. And I'm just going to come straight across to this one and trim off that tail in a minute, because that was actually probably less wasteful than trimming it in between. And then I can just come and trim all of those tails. And voila, one handle piece. So now we're going to do the pocket panel. So I can sit this aside. I'm actually going to clip this back to this piece and pop it aside. And I'm going to grab all of my linings. So you had to cut 5. So basically, whichever way you cut the outside, you need an extra one of the opposite. Right, so you should have 2 sets that go together, and then you should have 1 lining and 1 exterior opposite. So the 5th one gets cut the opposite way to your exterior piece, and that would be your 5th. I just thought I should explain that so that you know what you're cutting. So I am going to top stitch along this top edge. I've gone back to a joining stitch length, which for me is about 2.5. And we're going to back stitch, and then I'm just going to chain stitch the next one. We're going to do them all at the same time to save me some time. Really? Like that. We also save thread. And there's less tails to chop, and I like that. Okay, now I'm also going to top stitch these. So I'm going to fold back this and finger press that, because I don't have to iron this. And then if I pinch it, it gets right on that edge. which is a very nice way of doing it. Now, even if I was ironing, I would just iron it flat and then over. But you don't iron vinyl, you'll wreck it. So I'm now top stitching, and I've gone up to 3.5 for my stitch length. So again, I'm going to press it flat and then pinch it over. And then we're going to top stitch it to hold it in place. And then again, so I'm going to go back, over and flat, pinch it. And then I want to go the opposite way, so my top stitching on the outside is on the outside for both sides. That's just a minor detail. You don't have to do that. It's just something that I choose to do. Right, so that is now all of the slip pocket pieces done. Let's go down to what they'd like us to do next. Stick it on the outside. I thought so, but I just thought I'd check. So I can pop this aside now. We don't need that anymore. So we're going to need both our lining pieces and then the corresponding piece that this pocket lines up to. So depending on which way you cut it will be dependent on which side it ends up on. So this is the pocket that it corresponds to with all its edges. So now I'm just going to baste around the edge in place. So I'm going to start here, line it all up, and I'm stitching within the seam allowance so that we're not going to see it. And I'm going to go up the other side as well because it's easier to treat it as one piece when we're adding our zipper. Like that, and backstitch to lock the stitches in place. Trim off that tail, and now we have an exterior side pocket. Pop that aside. And so now we're going to grab these ones, line it up, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. I always like to keep the bulk of my fabric out of the throat, so I will sew these from opposite sides, but that's okay. And then I'm going to use my hand to put in that curve. So since recording videos, that's something that I didn't know that I did. So I stick my hand to turn a corner and then just turn my hand around. So I'll have it here, and then to turn the corner, I just twist my hand. And it does all the work for me. And then back to the top and back stitch, and then we can trim those off. And so now those pieces are ready for the final construction. Moving on to our zipper gusset. So again, I won't need that anymore. Pop that out of the way. But what I am going to need is my zipper tape. So I've just got, I don't know, a piece here, like a giant piece, and I'm just going to cut it to size as I need it. I never read the instructions for what the zipper needs unless it's going to have zipper tabs, in which case you need to make sure you get it the right size. But otherwise, I can literally just measure and cut like this when the zips are like this, which is how I do most of my sewing off camera. I am going to melt the ends though so that they don't fray. And then I'm going to get a second piece and do the same thing. I do like this. This is coming together very quickly. I'm going to melt this end as well so it doesn't carry on and start fraying, which it already did. And then I wind this up as I go because it's nice to be neat. And that rubber band around my wrist will eventually annoy me. Back in the drawer, I'm on this new thing where I'm trying to keep neater. So, you can do this a couple of ways. You can clip it like I am here, or you could just sew it, which we'll do on the other side, so I can show you different ways to do it. So clip it on, and then we're going to grab this piece and put it right sides together, like so. So that's now held. I only ever like to do 2 pieces of clipping at a time. You can do all 3 if you like. I find it fiddly and annoying. I prefer to just add the 3rd one in once everything else is lined up. So I'm stitching along this edge. I'm going to back stitch and then I'm going to come off. And this is made in a similar fashion to her Dariel, which I like. I think it's very clever. So I'm now going to line up this edge and do it without stitching. Although that is a smidgen too big or too small. I'm just going to trim this so it's even, because that's going to make my life easier. Not going to lie, it was very early when I was cutting this. So, other side zipper, lining side up, zipper sandwich with vinyl side down, under we go, and then I can just line this up as I go. There's more stopping and starting, but there's less clipping. So whichever way suits you best, do that. So then we are going to flip it through. So this will be trickier probably for me because of the vinyl that I've chosen. It's got like a felt back, so it makes it very thick. But it will go. I'll just have to maneuver it a little bit. But this is, again, is why we backstitch, because if I didn't backstitch, this would already start coming undone on me. So you're just going to have to kind of maneuver it down and work it through. So I'm going to hit pause and come back once it's done. All right, got that done. So now I'm going to pull it flat and I'm going to top stitch each side of the zipper, where the fabric is, obviously. And I'm doing 1/8 of an inch because all my top stitching is 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to back stitch, pull it out, trim it off, and then go and do the other side. Now, if you're worried about anything moving, you can come and do it from this side as well. I'm quite happy to just turn and go again. And so then I'm going to back stitch, trim off those tails, which are everywhere. Okay, so I like my scales this way. So from the bottom, I am then going to put on my zippers and put them approximately in the middle. So you put half in, then the other half, and then I wiggle it until it goes on. Like that, and I'm going to do the same to the other side. I've noticed recently that I use my zipper jig a lot less because this is just as quick for me now. And I don't use it on camera because it's annoying to move. Not gonna lie, that's literally why. Right, zippers are on. You don't want them too close to any edge. We just want to put them at the end. So now we're gonna come back to this main exterior gusset, bottom gusset, whatever we're calling that. And we're going to line up the bottom edges. Like this. And it should all match up lovely if you've used the right seam allowance. And if you find that your bottom gusset is a bit wider because you've used a different seam allowance or a different size zipper tape, that's okay. You can just trim it down. So we're going to pin that to there. And this one to here. I'm pretty sure I should double check that. I'm just guessing at this point. It feels like a logical step. Put this one right sides together. Let's check. Oh no, I'm not putting that one on. Okay, I'm not putting the other one on. Not where I thought this was going. That's okay. So we're just going to join this one to this one, and then we're going to pull this so it matches because one side's bigger than the other, and that's okay. And I'm going to clip it here. And then we're just going to use our seam allowance and stitch across the bottom to close this up. So I'm using a joining stitch length. And I just had to double check that all my scales are going the right way, because that is important. You don't want upside down scales. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to do the other end as well. Stitch, back stitch, along the bottom, back stitch, done. Trim off those tails, which I'm sure you're sick of me saying, but I can't help it anymore. And so now we have this. And now it wants us to join our outside pieces on. So we are going to take these lovely things. We're going to pop the other pieces aside for a minute. So this is now our front. So the front curve goes where the zipper is. So I'm going to put the front on the front, and I'm going to clip it to the zipper. I'm going to start with the zipper and just work my way around. So I'm starting at the top pointy part. You could also start at the bottom if you'd prefer. That is entirely your call. Oh, Jessie's calling me, so I'll be back. I have clipped one side, making sure that my zipper is going to finish at the top. And then I am going to stitch this. So I'm going to start with the straight edge, because that's where I want to start. I'm going to back stitch. I'm on a joining stitch length, again, of 2.5. Down I go. As I get closer to this corner, I'm going to slow down and make sure that I'm not going to get any pinches. So I'm just going to push it down more flat. And across the bottom, like so. Back stitch, and then I'm going to pull it out. And I just ran out of bobbin thread, so that was a good timing. I'll put in some black for the minute. You won't see it anyway, so it's fine. I will do another blue bobbin in a second because I'm going to have to close the lining, and the lining is blue. So then I'm just going to fold this down, and we're just going to go right along the edge. So I'm not stitching too close to the zipper this time because we've still got to put our lining on. And then we're going to come all the way up to the top, get to the corner, back stitch. Trim off the tails. So now you should have this. Now that I've done that side, I'm actually going to zip this open so that I'll have somewhere to turn it through. I don't want to zip the side I still have to stitch because I feel like that's going to be more tricky. So then we can take this side and we're going to do the same thing and clip it all together. So I'm just going to work my way down from the point and curve the zipper around. I like it shut because I feel like it's keeping its shape better so that you don't accidentally clip it in correctly. So I'm going to put lots of clips on this curve because it's a curve and I want it to hold exactly where I need it to be. You could possibly do this without clipping it. I could probably, if I made enough of these, I could do it without clipping it, but as a first, I'm all about the clips until I get used to something. So again, I'm moving my way down from the point because I want to get this corner. You can kind of go either way. So you can either come from the curve to the corner or from the corner to the curve. It's whatever you prefer to do. It should all work out in the end anyway, so. Curve, curve clip. Right, so I've actually got a little bit of excess here. See how I've got this little bump? So all I'm going to do is maneuver it to the corner. Look at that, it's gone. So now I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to start at the zipper. Or you can start at the base, but I like to start with this out of the machine. So I'm just going to stitch close to the edge of the zipper tape, because again, we still have to put on our other one, and I don't want to have to try and go exactly over my first little stitching, because that will be tricky. Needle down, again, pivot around. If it's going to make it easier now that you've clipped it, you can open your zipper. I'm getting to the corner. I'm going to back stitch and run off the end so that I can readjust and then continue on. So this part, I can do the real seam allowance, just not where the zipper is, because we're going to do that again soon. Again, I'm coming up to this corner. I want to make sure it's nice and flat. Up to the top. Get into that corner, back stitch, and run off the edge. Voila. So this is now what we've got. So I'm going to open both sides of the zippers. I'm also going to grab some scissors, and I'm just going to trim off this bit and the corners so that they're going to turn better and sit more flush. Trim off the corners like that. That's a lot of trimming, but now that it's done, we're good. So I'm going to put the clips away, push all of that into the bin. Okay. So then the pattern says we're going to push this in like that. And then I'm going to set it aside. And we're going to move on to the lining. So it goes along. So this is where the zipper edge goes. So then this should go along this edge like so, I believe. So we're going to start here, stitch, back stitch, down we come. I'm going to make sure these line up, so I'm going to hold it at that edge to make sure that this corner is going to come down where I need it to. And again, you should probably pin this. Turn, back stitch. That worked out really well, actually. Then I'm just going to trim off that corner because, again, I don't want the bulk. So now with this side, I'm going to pin it because I need to make sure I leave a gap for turning through the bag. And it doesn't really matter which piece you do it on. So I'm going to stitch to here. And then I'm going to leave this little gap here right before the curve. And then I'm going to go back to pinning the curve. And again, we're holding it like a 3D object. So I'm pushing this so it's going around the curve. I know it didn't look like I did that before with the other side, but it does still work. Okay, so start from somewhere. Pick an end, any end. Down we come. We're going to do the curve. And then I'm going to stop and back stitch. Pull it out. Trim it off. Then I can even flip it and start from the edge again. Stitch. And you just want to stitch in a little bit. So I've done 1.5 inches according to my ruler. You don't want to do too little because then it's going to be hard to stitch shut, but you don't want to do too much because then your hole will be too small. It's a tough game to play. All right. Push that out like so, and remembering that we should have a little bit of a gap. And then we're just going to put this on here and clip it together with the right sides facing each other like this. And then I'm going to put a lot of clips so that it all holds in place. And I've chosen this fabric today because I'm pretty sure my child's going to claim it. It currently looks like it's going to be really good for like some crafty stuff. I also could see this as like a men's shaving kit. So that's kind of a cool idea as well. Lots of possibilities with this. Makeup. So then again, I'm going across the bottom. Like this. And then I might go from the top down just because I want to. I always like to start with the short edge. It's because I find it easier and I feel accomplished. I think that's why I do it. Do the easy bits first and then everything else will kind of fall into place. It's coming down to this corner. Clipping, lots of clips. Right, so now it looks like this, which looks like one of those fun moon chairs. And I like it. Alright, so I am going to start up here, because why not? You can flip it any which way you like. No right or wrong at this particular point. I'm going to backstitch, and I know you're not going to be able to see because of the shape that it is, but I am holding it as the 3D object. I'm not trying to flatten it out too much. And then when I get to the zipper part, I'm making sure that my foot is running up against the zipper edge, which means it's going to hide our previous stitches. You won't see them. It's also hiding this basting stitch here that we did for our slip pockets. Now this corner is going to be a bit chunky. So I'm just going to manually crank it because I don't want to snap a needle. It's not really where I'm feeling today. And then we're going to go along the bottom and get to our other corner. And again, I'm going to manually crank it so that I don't snap anything. This machine is not designed to do super thick things. And then I'm nearly back to the start. Again, another thick bit, and then I'm going to backstitch. Voila! So now, it looks like this. I'm going to trim those tails, and then I'm going to put my hand in, and I'm going to grab this top edge up here, the top of the moon chair. And I'm going to squish the whole bag so that I can pull everything through that hole. Now, my hole is possibly a little small, but if I had done it any bigger, I would have had to have done it in the corner, which would have made it just as tricky. And it also doesn't help that I've used a super thick vinyl, but I will get it because nothing defeats me. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make this as skinny as possible so that I can get it through the gap. So when you're pulling, you don't just want to pull like this. I pull and I kind of maneuver this way. So I'm kind of, I don't know, levering it out as opposed to just pulling, because that is more likely to rip a seam than that. So I'm just gonna open to here so that I can grab that bit and gently pull it through. I'm gonna go fight this off camera because it's not the pattern, it's my vinyl choices. It's not exactly the most supple and movable thing. So I'm gonna turn this out and I'll be right back. We're all turned out. I have done blue in my bobbin again. So just make sure that your zips work. That's obviously very, very important. So we're almost finished, right? It's got a cool little handle. All we need to do is a couple things. We need to do a Tory squish on some of the edges, and we need to turn through our pocket and close it up. So I'm just going to tuck those raw edges in like that. Just tuck them in, and then I'm going to grab a clip and clip it down. So like that and like that. Now you can use, if you've used cotton, you can use pins. But if you've used the waterproof canvas, make sure you're using Wonder Clips. Like so. And so then I'm just going to maneuver this under here and go stitch, back stitch. You also notice my machine's a little bit quieter because I have oiled the bobbin holder, bobbin case holder, whatever it's called. That little bit I tell you to put oil in, I put some in, and now it's a lot quieter. So I can trim off those tails, tuck that back in, and because it's at the bottom, you can barely see it. So now I'm going to zip it back up, and the last thing I'm going to do to finish it off is a good Tory squish. So you can see here, see how it's a little bit too tucked under? You just need to kind of roll that out like that, and then squish it back and forth. So you can go and do that around the back as well. So the back's going to need a little bit. Now this will hold the squish quite well because of the texture of the vinyl. So I'm a bit lucky like that. I'm just going to squish around and see how it's already sitting a little bit nicer. But that is the bag done with a cute little outside pocket. I really enjoyed that. And that was a pretty quick sew. Alright guys, until next time. Bye-bye.